Before we get started, I'm Judge Gant, court now in session, and just to give everybody some kind of guidance for today and in the future, we're here for a probable cause hearing. This is not time for discovery. If you don't have discovery, I suggest that after prelims, you get in touch with the state to get discovery. And it is also not a fishing expedition. And we're waiting on Mr. Hudson, is that right? Oh, I'm sorry. States for, well, actually call the case numbers.
Is Hudson here?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, state calls John Ethan Hudson, warrant number 2024-A06, 202-00014, a warrant for hindering an officer. Warrant 2024-A06, 202-00015 for obstructing justice. Additionally, Your Honor, state calls Joshua David Washburn, warrant number 2024-A06, 202-00019 for assault and battery in the first degree. Warrant 2024-A06, 202-00020 for assault in the first degree. Warrant 2024-A06, 202-00021 for possession of a firearm or ammunition by a person convicted of certain crimes. Those are the 5 warrants being called, Your Honor. The state would call to the stand Captain Huggins of the Blackville Police Department.
Captain Huggins, would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, sir.
Answer any questions the state has for you.
Yes, sir.
Captain Huggins, please state for the court the facts and circumstances that led to the arrest of Joshua David Washburn and John Ethan Hudson on March the 9th of 2024.
Yes, sir. On March 9th, 2024, at approximately 3 o'clock, that was a Saturday, I was working as a sworn police officer in the town limits of Blackville, South Carolina. I was patrolling the area of Hampton Boulevard near Fair Lane. I seen a large crowd at the intersection of Farrell and Hampton. And as I was approaching that large crowd, dispatch was also dispatching me to that location in reference to an altercation. Upon my arrival, I got out of the car. I spoke with the victim, who at that time appeared to be frantic, alarmed, panicking. The victim stated that the subject, the defendant, Mr. Josh Washburn, pointed a hand at a black handgun at him and stated that he would kill him. I attempted to continue to interview the victim. At that time, I ran Mr. Josh Washburn through Central Dispatch. I was advised that he had an active warrant out of state for Indiana with full extradition nationwide. I walked over to him, attempted at that time to place him under arrest, advised him of the warrant. He began shouting, screaming profanity at me, stating that the warrant was not nationwide. I asked him to calm down, tried to explain to him that it was. It was another individual standing next to him, Mr. John Ethan Hudson, who also stated that that warrant was not full nationwide extradition. I advised Mr. Hudson to step back. He continued to yell and scream as well. I continued to advise him to step back. At the same time, I had one handcuff on Mr. Josh Washburn, and Mr. Hudson attempted to pull him away, stating that that warrant was not valid. The out-of-state warrant was not valid. I told Mr. Hudson to step back again. Mr. Washburn at that time locked his arm out. He really wasn't resisting, but he locked his arm out, trying to tell me that the warrant was not active or nationwide for extradition. Asked him to calm down. I tried to explain to him that it was. So I finally got one handcuff. I finally got both handcuffs on him, and at that time, Mr. John Ethan Hudson approached the individual that I had handcuffed and began to remove items from his person as I was telling him to step away from the prisoner that I had handcuffed and in custody. I was able to separate Mr. Washburn from Mr. Hudson, got him in the back. At that time, Barnwell County Deputy Sheriff pulled up. I was out there by myself at the time. Barnwell County Deputy Sheriff pulled up, and I asked the Deputy Sheriff, could I place Mr. Washburn in the back of his vehicle, because my vehicle was an unmarked vehicle and it didn't have a cage vehicle. And I was able to put him in the back of a Deputy Sheriff's vehicle at that time.
When you got Mr. Washburn to the jail, were you able to confirm the nationwide extradition status of his warrant?
Yes, sir. Before I actually removed him from the location, we, what we call, sent an alert to the out-of-state agency. It's called a hit. The hit was confirmed before I removed him, and it was full nationwide extradition. And at that time, he was transported to all kind of detention center.
As to the charges of assault and battery in the first degree against Mr. Washburn, were those based on the witness statements from, and this is a little bit confusing, there's a John Allen Hudson, who I believe is the father of John Ethan Hudson?
That's the information that was provided to me, yes, sir.
Okay, so there's a John Allen Hudson listed as a victim, and there is a Edwin Rayner Jr. who is listed as a victim in these two warrants for assault and battery in the first degree. What was the basis of the assault and battery in the first degree charges?
Yes, sir. So,
Was that the statements that were made by the victims?
yes, sir. The statements that were made by both victims on body cam as well as a written statement. And I took that information back to a magistrate judge, told him everything I had, and I was advised that I had probable cause for arrest warrant for assault and battery first.
Please answer any questions the defense may have.
All right, you said that you were called out there by, was there a call made to 911?
I don't know if it came in through 911 or if it came in through the non-emergency number, but Central Dispatch did advise me to that location, as well as I was approaching that location simultaneously as I was being dispatched. And I saw the large crowd at the end of the road, so I knew at that time something was going on, and then dispatch also gave me the call as well.
So did you know who was involved
Before I,
before you stopped?
no,
And you didn't know who was involved?
no ma'am,
When dispatch gave you the call, they didn't tell you who was involved?
that is, no ma'am.
And so, when you pulled up there, you saw there was actually a crowd. There was a crowd of people on, I guess, two sides of the street.
Yes ma'am. It was some people that were standing at the intersection and some people that were standing across the street in the median, in the
Yeah.
divide, yes.
And you approached the people in the median first.
I can't remember who I approached first. I don't want to get locked in with that. I can't.
But you recall that you asked who had called law enforcement?
I think I did, or I could have done that.
All right. And you actually talked to a woman. Did you recall her name?
I've talked to several females out there. But to answer your question, I did. I talked to women out there. Yes, ma'am.
A woman who said that she saw a fight happen between Mr. Edward Rayburn and somebody else.
I talked to a female that gave me a statement. If you're talking about that female.
The one who was telling you about the fight between Mr. Rayburn and she didn't identify the second person.
I talked to women out there. I got a statement from a female witness, Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker gave me some information.
Okay. And you talked to Mr. Rayburn? I'm sorry, Rayner.
I talked to Mr. Ed Rayner. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did he tell you about being in a fight with anybody?
He told me that someone pointed a gun at him. That's what he told me, and threatened to kill him.
So he never told you about being in a fight?
I don't recall him saying that. I would have to review my body cam video.
Did Did you look at the body cam before you came here to testify?
I did not look at the date, but I looked at it previously, several
Okay.
times.
All right, and so after you talked to Mr. Rayner, what did you do?
After I talked to Mr. Rayner, I was advised that Mr. Washburn was wanted out of state, and I told the victim to stand fast, and I walked over to Mr. Washburn and attempted at that time to place him into custody.
All right, wait a minute. Did you already know that Mr. Washburn was wanted out of state?
Well, I didn't, I was told he was, but I wasn't for sure, so I had to confirm it through dispatch.
So you confirmed that at that time?
I did, on site.
Okay. Now, why were you confirming about Mr. Washburn? Because at the time that you arrested Mr. Washburn, nobody had identified Mr. Washburn as the person who assaulted Mr. Rayner.
I don't understand your question.
When you were arresting Mr. Washburn, nobody had identified him at that point as the person who assaulted Mr. Rayner.
So,
Why were you arresting Mr. Washburn?
I was confirmed, I was told through dispatch that he did have an active warrant out of Indiana.
All right, so you stopped in the middle of this investigation to confirm whether he had a warrant to arrest him for the Indiana one?
Well, I didn't stop. I was doing everything. I can multitask. I can do a lot of things at one time. You know, there was a lot of moving parts going there. Being a police officer, you gotta be able to multitask. I didn't stop what I was doing. That was one of the things that I was doing.
All right. And where did all this happen that Mr. Rayner says that Mr. Washburn pointed a gun at him?
He said it happened on Farrell Lane or on or near an address of 1253 Hampton Avenue. If I had a map, I could draw it out for you, but that address kind of like spills out on Farrell Lane, and Farrell Lane runs into Hampton Avenue. He stated that it happened at that location.
Why? I mean, why did he say he pointed the gun?
He said they got into an altercation, and Mr. Washburn pulled out a black handgun and pointed at him and stated that he was gonna kill him.
All right. And said he was gonna kill Mr. Rayburn. Mr.
Rayner.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Rayner.
This is what that victim told me, Mr. Rayner.
Okay.
Yes.
And when did the allegation come out about Mr. Hudson?
After Mr. Washburn was placed inside the deputy vehicle, I was able at that time to start interviewing other individuals out there. I talked to well, there was a lot of people yelling at me at that time. And like I said, I was one person out there. So I believe Mr. Hudson was yelling, stated that the gentleman pointed a gun at him. Mr. Rayner was yelling at me. Like you said, it was women out there stating the same thing. It was a lot going on in me being one officer. So I had to take my time and just to tell everybody I would talk to them individually. And I started going through the process of talking to each individual. And Mr. Hudson, when I got to Mr. Hudson, this is when he advised me of saying that Mr. Washburn pointed a gun at him. He gave me a color. He even gave me a caliber, and I asked him how did he know it was that caliber. But this is something that he told me. He stated that he pointed a weapon at him and stated that he would kill him.
So, but I want to clarify, Mr. Hudson came up after Mr. Hudson came up after Mr. Washburn was in the police car.
I believe Mr. Hudson approached me as I was getting out of the car initially. Mr. Rayner approached me. The female that you asked approached me. It was everybody approaching me at the same time initially. I could not talk to everybody at the same time. So if you're asking me exactly when did Mr. Hudson talk to me or say something to me, I cannot tell you. I did interview him on scene at that location.
All right, and all of your interviews with these people are on your body cam?
That's correct.
Did you have more than one video from your body cam?
Of course, I believe that my body cam may run for 5 or 10 minutes, and after that, it's gonna start another video, and after that, it's gonna start another video. I believe I was out there, and I got maybe 4 or 5 videos, because my body cam is gonna constantly record. So I may have several videos.
All right, and there were other officers ultimately came?
It was one deputy sheriff that came, yes.
All right, do you know, did he do any interviews?
I don't believe he interviewed anyone. I don't believe. Like I said, it was a large crowd out there. I was glad to see him. He stood by, you know, and helped me to sort some stuff out, or to keep individuals away from the prison at that time when I was attempting to handcuff him.
All right, I just need to clarify also. You said that Mr. Rayner says that he was in an altercation with Mr. Washburn, when Mr. Washburn allegedly pointed this gun at Mr. Rayner. Why was there a gun pointed at Mr. Hudson? Why did he say that anybody pointed a gun at him?
He said the same thing. He said Mr. Washburn threatened him and point a firearm at him. The reason why, I don't know if he wrote it in his statement, but he sounded panicky, afraid at that time. But he also stated that the defendant pointed a handgun at him.
Okay, beg the court's indulgence for a moment. One second, Judge. Are you familiar with Mr. Washburn? In general?
No, ma'am, I'm
No.
not.
Are you aware that he and his friends regularly tape their interactions with other?
Objection, Your Honor.
Well, Judge, I'm asking about his investigation.
That's not the purpose of the hearing. The purpose of the hearing is to establish whether or not probable cause existed.
Judge, I'm asking, what I would be asking is if he reviewed any of the videotapes that Mr. Washburn and his friends would have had prior to his arrest of Mr. Washburn for these charges.
I'm gonna sustain this objection.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, anything further from the state?
Nothing from the state. As to Mr. Washburn, Your Honor, we would have, we still need to go through Mr. Hudson.
Judge, I would have a motion regarding Mr. Washburn.
Okay,
Do you want me to do my motion now or wait for Mr.?
you can go ahead and do your motion. Mr. Hudson, are you representing yourself?
Yes, sir.
Do you have something you'd like to say then,
Yes, sir.
while Ms. Apple is getting ready?
Yes, sir.
You understand you had the right to an attorney.
Yes, sir.
You did not wish to have an attorney today.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And you do know this is the last public, preliminary hearing you're gonna get, okay? You have any you cannot be giving him any advice unless you're a member of the bar. All right? Do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And forgive me, I've never been through anything like this before.
when you say forgive you, I want you to know we got rules we have to go by, and that you'll have to be within those rules, okay? All right, answer any questions that Mr. Hudson has for you.
Yes, sir.
When did you arrive on the day? To the
At
scene.
At approximately 3 o'clock.
Okay. What was your investigation process?
Objection, Your Honor, the question's already been answered.
Sustain.
How did you identify Joshua Washburn?
Objection, Your Honor, it doesn't go to probable cause, that's Mr. Hudson.
Sustain.
Who all did you interview?
I interviewed Monica Hudson, I interviewed Sabrina Baker, I interviewed Edwin Brainer, and your father, John Hudson.
Okay. Did you interview me?
I did.
Okay. Wasn't noticed? No problem. Did I report an assault on that day the same?
You told me that someone assaulted you, correct? Yes, sir.
Who did I tell you assaulted me?
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of the hearing.
Sustain.
Okay. At the moment, whenever I supposedly searched Josh Washburn, was he detained or under arrest?
Yes, sir.
Was he detained or under arrest?
He was under arrest.
Under arrest. Okay. And you said that I grabbed and pulled him,
Yes, sir.
correct? While he was under arrest.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said that you talked to Eddie before Joshua was in the police vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And you did say that there was body camera footage of the whole event.
Yes, sir.
Now, Judge, I do have a question. Would I be able to show body cam footage at this hearing?
No, sir, you can't, this is not time for you to present any evidence.
Yes, sir. I understand. Let's see. Upon Sheriff Ortiz's arrival, did you say you searched Joshua Washburn 2 days before the incident?
Can you repeat your question?
Upon the arrival of Sheriff Ortiz, did you say you searched up Joshua Washburn 2 days prior to the incident?
Objection, Your Honor, it's not relevant to this hearing.
Okay.
Sustain.
On the day, was I wearing glasses upon the supposed incident?
I don't remember, sir.
One moment. Upon the detainment, or as you say, arrest, did you say that I was fine where I was standing? After you asked me to back up, that you were. You're okay.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sustain.
Okay.
Your motion, Ms. Elvis?
Your Honor, Mr. Washburn is, I'm not making any motion regarding the first two charges, but Mr. Washburn is charged with possession of a firearm or ammunition by a person convicted of a violent felony. There was no testimony presented regarding his prior record. I would move to dismiss that for lack of probable.
Your Honor, I believe that the actual charge is related to his prior drug conviction, not the possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent felony. However, I am reviewing his record, and Captain, if you don't mind, Captain, do you know what alleged prior conviction for Mr. Washburn would be the one that disqualified him from being able to have a firearm or ammunition?
No, sir, not right off.
But he is federally prohibited from having a firearm or ammunition, correct?
From his criminal history, yes, sir.
Your Honor, on the basis of that information, and not to step on Ms. Alvis's motion, but I don't believe that there is a qualifying conviction that would prohibit Mr. Washburn from possessing a firearm under South Carolina law. So the state would concede that charge.
Okay.
And if we find out differently, we'll direct indict it at a later point.
All right, so warrant ending in 00021 has been dismissed. Warrant numbers ending in 00019 and 20 have been bound over.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, as to Mr. Hudson, the state would move that probable cause has been found as to the obstruction and the hindering an officer.
Okay. Anything that you'd like to say about that, Mr. Hudson?
Well, I'd like to dismiss both of them, but no, sir.
Okay. I'm binding, warrants ending in 00014 and 00015 over for General Sessions Case Court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd like to ask that Captain Huggins be allowed to return to Blackville and return the deed.
Do you have another,
Corey Duncan, Your Honor.
Corey?
He actually came to first appearance on Monday, and at that time requested an attorney because he hadn't had time to get an attorney appointed. We have continued that prelim so he can get his attorney.
Okay.
I'll be excused, Your Honor.